So as you think back, right, and as we started to talk, right, like what were you starting to notice in the opportunities that you were working on, right, in the space that you were in, right, and how did the things that you and I were talking about resonate, right, for you in that space?
You know what? I want to go back one step too. Is just the frequency that I started to notice through you challenging me. And I don't think at the time we were really talking about ambition, but looking back, it was ambition. You disguised it, um, and that frequency then transferred over into, I think, this question you're asking now. The tendency for people and companies is they often think, well, geez, what we've been doing for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years has gotten us here. It could certainly get us to where we want to go. Even though they had opportunity, whether it was a specific process or technology or both, they just didn't see and don't see the opportunity. It's almost as if they just operate off of hope. And in the utility infrastructure construction industry, whether it's power, gas, water, wastewater, those companies are not accustomed to being disruptive. And in this case, outcome-based sales.
How did you see that showing up as far as like things falling short, right, for them, like falling short of where you thought their total potential might be?
They just didn't know what they didn't know, meaning they didn't know how to ask these questions. If the opportunity with a particular customer of theirs or um, a new customer, they didn't understand how to frame it differently and ask the right questions. I would say I don't know if that answers the question, but that's my first what comes to mind.
So you could see, like, within these companies that they themselves weren't necessarily seeing what was possible for them to achieve.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And I don't know if that was because of lack of process, or just because they've been into the same way of doing things for so long. There was just not really any thought leadership there that was strong enough to build off of what they've built.
So as you reflect on the work, right, that you've done in different situations, right, how have you seen the definition of what's possible, right, take shape?
I'd say in general, the businesses where I've done advisory with them, I don't know that they've really fully adapted the change. For me personally, what this whole interaction and relationship has done is it's put a framework, a formality, a plan around ambition. And man, like I got chills on my arm. Had I had that when I first started my career, or paid attention to the coaching and mentoring I had around frameworks and procedures, I was the typical sales guy. Yeah, I'll just go get it. I know everything. And I was successful, but I would have been deadly had I had this operational framework that we're now able to go out and give to people and coach them across industry. So I've had a lot of big opportunities come in the last 3 years because of this framework.
Can you expand a little bit more on kind of how you think the framework, the things that we teach, our process driven approach at Horizons West, the way that we talk about, the three pillars that we talk about that underpin plan, prepare, practice, play, but then it's underpinned by ambition, strategy, execution, right? How has that shaped for you, like personally, how are you doing things differently today, maybe than you did when you were that sales rep you were talking about? Because to me, you're still like you're still in sales. You're in sales of all, you're in full sales mode all the time, right? And so like how do you think it's shaped and maybe changed the way you approach things today?
Man, that's the great thing about ambition, because you can use it at home with your kids, your wife, your husband, your partner. It's applicable across the board because it forces you to step back, take a moment, and think, because you have a different mindset if you are really implementing ambition. So I think that that's the biggest movement for me.